Buddy was out for a casual ride, just enjoying the road, when out of nowhere, a car pulled out in front of him. He had no time to react. 1 second he was upright. The next, he was airborne and slamming into the pavement. He stayed conscious, did a quick body check. Everything hurt, but he could move. Paramedics said he was lucky. The bike was wrecked, but he walked away with a few broken bones and a new perspective. Life changes in an instant. Ride safe every time. In this episode of the Motorcycle Podcast, we discuss what's next after a motorcycle accident. My crew today: Trevor Deck, motorcycle instructor of over 30 years, co-owner-operator of Too Cool Motorcycle School; Jim Pruner, writer-contributor to Webbike World; and Emily Roberts, writer-contributor to Motorcycle Mojo magazine. Today's topic: what's next after a motorcycle accident?
Make sure the bike's okay.
Make sure the bike's okay?
Make sure the bike's okay.
The bike?
That first
Is that what you said, the bike?
Yeah.
He doesn't care about himself or anyone else.
Exactly. I can't believe you just said that, Trevor Deck. That the bike's okay? Come on, somebody. Please.
Panic. Make sure you panic right away.
Yeah, I mean, laying down a bike or getting into a crash is a pretty crazy thing to experience, and your adrenaline is just pumping. So I feel like for a lot of people, instincts just kind of kick in. You jump up, you want to make sure that the bike's okay. That is something that you definitely think about if you're going to lay down a bike. That's one of the first things that you think about because your adrenaline is pumping like crazy. You don't know what to do. I mean, I think the most important thing is to make sure that you're okay, especially if you find yourself on the ground. And then make sure that you get to safety, get off the road, or if you're still in the way.
Okay, hold on. Let's walk through this. So the bike goes down. Let's just say you just slipped on some gravel and you're going at a moderate speed.
Yeah.
You're still lying on the ground. You're right. The adrenaline, it's pumping. Are you saying get up right away, or are you saying just stay in that that position and then feel your body to make sure that everything's okay? Like, help me understand what you're just saying, Emily.
That's a very situational question.
Okay.
I mean, in theory, if you're going slowly, say through an intersection, or even riding a corner moderately, and you hit gravel, normally you'd go down like that, and especially with gear on, you'd slide. There wouldn't be a massive impact, and you'd likely stay conscious the whole time, maintaining good mental status and understanding that you probably didn't have any injuries in those moments.
Isn't the fear that the car is going to be coming by?
Yeah, that's a huge fear.
Right?
I mean, you want to get up, you want to make sure that you're safe right away, especially if you're in an intersection or any sort of city area. I mean, there's a lot of distracted drivers. There's a lot of things going on that you can't control. So if you wake up unconscious in the middle of the intersection, then obviously you're probably not moving right away. And by that time, there's likely going to be a few people helping you. But
I want to hear about Jim falling in a pothole.
He's that small?
That was so minor, though. I was just thinking, do we need is it story time? Do we need to hear from one of us about the most spectacular crash and what you did after? That's the topic, right? What do you do after it happens? Well, what did you do?
Yeah.
And I would bet Trevor and Emily both have better crash stories than me.
There's never a better one. It's just a crash story, man.
I've had a few two
Pick your
of
favorite.
my more impressive ones on the road aren't actually crashes, but me hitting deer.
Ouch.
I've hit 2 deer by bike, and I've kept the bike up both times, so I didn't lay down the bike. But having to deal with pulling over, running back, and like making sure that the deer is off the road, watching it die, having that happen is pretty bad. And the second time it happened, I had plastics. My motorcycle plastics shattered, and they were all over the road, and it was a busy road. And so after I was able to pull over the bike safely and make sure that I was okay, I ended up picking up the pieces off the road when I could dodge cars.
Gee.
Wow. So your bike was fine and you rode it home?
Yeah, well, I had a big ride after that. I was going to go home, and I thought if I go home now, I'll feel really crappy about myself and just kind of sit in the disappointment. And I was supposed to go ride some single track with friends, so I took it dirt biking instead. And I really did rely on my friends. I got to the parking lot and they had duct tape ready. They were wiping the blood off my bike and off my boots, and
Oh my gosh.
and we went riding afterwards. And I think that that's also an important thing. A few steps after the crash is to make sure that mentally, if you choose to get back on that bike. I know, we've talked about it, and we see a lot of people who exit the motorcycling community because they're fearful of it now.
Yeah.
And for me, in that moment, I was okay. The bike was still rideable, and I thought if I go home now, I'm going to be sitting there overthinking every aspect of that situation. I don't want to have to do that. I'd rather just ride and get it out of my head and know that I'll be okay tomorrow to ride again.
It's kind of like falling off a horse. They always say to get back right on it. Actually, I had an experience where I did actually fall off a horse because the saddle wasn't tightened enough. And as I'm in full gallop, no word of lie, and I swear the horse knew it. Full gallop, and all of a sudden I started leaning to the left and went, "Oh, you've got to be kidding! What am I going to hold on to?" And I just said, "Well, just go for it." So boom, off I go. I'm flying ass over tea kettle. And what did I do? I got back on that horse again. Made sure the saddle was tight, of course, but I believe it's the same thing with motorcycle riding. You had said, I think one of you said, I think it was you, Emily, once you actually are involved in an accident, check yourself out. But more importantly, I believe you also need to, as Trevor mentioned earlier, to check the bike. There could be leaking, there could be hoses knocked off. A whole bunch of things could have happened.
For sure. Yeah. I just always prioritize yourself and not your bike. The bike could be laying in the middle of the road, and you trying to go and pull it off in the midst of traffic might not be a safe choice. But yeah, checking over your bike. I've had it happen to me before, specifically on my dirt bike, where I put a hole in my case on my flywheel cover side, and I didn't realize it. I rode for the rest of the day with it leaking oil, and luckily the bike was okay. The hole was high enough that not all of the oil drained out. But I know a few people who've done that, and they've seized their engines because they didn't look at the engine cases once they fell.
Do you guys believe that you need to talk to somebody if you've been involved in an accident?
Depends on the severity.
Does it really? Does it? No, seriously, yeah. Jim, does it really?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, there's, it's kind of like that old saying with flying, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. And it's kind of the same with riding. I mean, if you get away unscathed, then it's just a good story for around the campfire later, right? But
yeah,
there are other people who have real serious ones. Knock on wood, I never have, but I know plenty of people who, I've had those helmet shattering type of crashes, like literally the helmet splits in two or breaks, and like to do that to a fiberglass helmet, the force that they connected their head to, never mind the rest of them, I can't even imagine. It's and something like that, yeah, then maybe you do need to have some therapy or some, at least a shoulder to cry on. And I would never fault anyone who has a crash of any type who then says, you know what, I'm good, my riding days are over. I would never try and pressure them to get back on that horse, because it is scary and it is dangerous. If your head is not in the game 100%, well, wow, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, Trevor, do I need to retrain myself?
Well, there's a couple little things that I've had students, after the course, they ride, something bad happens, and all of a sudden they get a text or an email or a phone call going, "Hey, like Jim was saying, can we talk?" The biggest thing is they want to know kind of what happened, what can they do to prevent this from happening again. I remember getting taught once that if you ever fall off a bike at speed and you're sliding along the ground and you think you're stopped, just wait 3 more seconds. You might not be stopped.
Yeah, no kidding.
And what Emily said about something broken, when I got hit from behind at that stop sign, well, when I went to pick up the bike, the clutch lever was broken. The shifter was bent in. And it's like, well, what do you do now? And then, I also was told one time there's 3 rules of riding. This applies on the racetrack or even just normal roads. You're going to take yourself out, which is like the number one cause of deaths and crashes. You're going to take someone else out, and someone's going to take you out. And you always have to be wary of that. And that's why, talking about gear before. But the biggest thing is, it's nice to know what the cause was. Like, I had a friend go down because of rain. Well, did you spike the brakes? Like, did you brake where you normally do it? Did you slow down a little bit more? So you really have to have that. And Emily did really good about being aware of your surroundings. And even if you go down, like, what's going to go, what's next?
Well, the key is, though, you don't want to be riding in fear. That's the key. Because if you decide you want to jump right back on that horse again, if you're riding with fear, wow, you're in the wrong headspace.
And that just takes time. And like Jim was saying, sometimes there's not enough time left to process this. And you know what? You stay in your car and you do that. But in a while, in 3 or 4 years, I see people all of a sudden venture back into it and go, you know what? I can do this again, but I'm going to come at it a little more professionally. I'm going to make sure I get the gear on. I'm going to make sure I get adequate training and continue my training. And I've seen those people be really successful, and they're the ones that help out the bike show, and they talk to people about, yeah, it's dangerous. This is what's happened to me, but this is how I got myself back into it. And it's wonderful things to hear.
Life changes in an instant. Ride safe every time. My thanks to Emily Roberts, Jim Pruner, and Trevor Deck. My name is Phoenix. On the next episode,
I got to start thinking like this is more of a sport, and you can look good in a sport wearing the proper gear.
You're listening to The Motorcycle Podcast, a presentation of L2R World. Discover more at www.l2rworld.com.